Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of YouTube Developers Live. My name is Ikai.
And this is Ibrahim Ulukaya.
And today what we're going to be talking about is using IDEs with the YouTube API samples. Now, after I'm done with that, Ibrahim's going to talk a little bit about the YouTube samples and the code and the samples themselves. But for the first part of this, I was really excited to do the show because a lot of what we're going to talk about is also going to be applicable to many of the APIs that we have available. For instance, if you want to work with Google Drive API, you could use many of the same steps to import into your IDE. And if it isn't clear, we're talking about Java. So the two IDEs that I'll be using today are going to be Eclipse and IntelliJ. So with that, are you ready to begin?
Sure.
All right, so I'm going to take my trusty laptop here and put it in my lap. And this is running OS X. But these commands should more or less be the exact same across platform because I think that Eclipse and IntelliJ have done a really good job of more or less making the experience the same across the different development platforms. It's just that on some platforms, if I were to do anything on the command line, I might have slightly different commands or I would have to do things a little bit differently. So what we're looking at right now is the YouTube API samples page. This is a Google Code project that contains all of our sample projects. So it includes our sample code that show you how to do basic things. That's uploading a video, posting a bulletin, doing a search, basically a lot of things you want to do. So how do you get to this page? Well, you go to code.google.com/p/YouTube-API-samples, or you can just search for YouTube API samples, and what will happen is this will be one of the top results. Now, my search results are going to be they might be ordered differently from yours, but it'll be on the first page for sure. So now that we're on this page, we want to download the samples here from Download Samples. And you'll see that we have a zip file here that we can click and start downloading the samples. I've already done this, and I've already unzipped it to save us some time. Now, let's start talking about Eclipse. Eclipse is one of the most popular Java IDEs. I mean, it's free. You've got lots of different options. There are many, many plugins. What I'm running here is I'm running a newer version of Eclipse. So let's take a look at what version I'm running. I am running Eclipse Kepler. And this is either Eclipse 4.2 or 4.3. What's important is that, excuse me, we're using something nowadays to bundle all of our samples called Maven. If you've never used Maven before, Maven is a Java build and distribution system that effectively you configure an XML file, and I'll show you a little bit of what this looks like, of all your dependencies. And when you're building, Maven will check to see if those dependencies exist on your system and in your library, or in your code. If they do not, it's going to go to the internet, it's going to download these sources, and it's going to update your build path so you include the appropriate jar files and dependencies when you're compiling your code. And this is really a huge deal, I think, because prior to this we were using ants, and we used to tell people, well, go find this jar file, and go find this jar file, and compile this, and that's kind of crazy. You know, don't you think? It's like you got to go around and you have to play this Where's Waldo game to find your dependencies, and Maven makes this really easy. A second thing is that with Maven, there's a very defined kind of structure for what your projects more or less look like. And this makes it really easy for IDEs to import your project. So I'm going to show you what this means. I've already imported a few projects here, but that's because this is for Ibrahim afterwards to walk us through some code. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to import the YouTube command line search sample. And how do we do this? Well, again, I'm running Eclipse Kepler, and most versions of Eclipse past 4.2 for Java, these will include the M2 Eclipse plugin. If you're using an older version of Eclipse, I'm going to go back to Chrome real quick. You'll need to install M2 Eclipse. You need to install this plugin if you don't already have it. And the way you do this is the same as the way you would install most Java plugins, where you copy the URL, you go to Eclipse, you click on Help, Install New Software, put in the URL, click Add, name it something, M2 Eclipse. This will go ahead and try to connect to the site. You click on it, you click Next. It's going to calculate dependencies, and this could take a long time depending on what you're installing, but you just kind of click through the menus until this thing installs. I'm not going to show you how to do this because I already have Maven integration on my laptop, so we're just going to go ahead and start importing the project. So I'm going to click File, Import, and what you want to select is existing Maven projects. So you can, if it doesn't show up right away, and it shows up because I was just working on this, type in Maven in the filter, and this will filter down to every kind of import step that includes the word Maven. And again, you want to select existing Maven projects. I'm going to click Next. Now we're going to browse the root directory of the samples folder. I put this in my downloads directory. So let's go ahead and let's go to my home directory. Ooh, there's a lot of stuff in here. We're going to go to downloads. I'm going to go to youtube-api.samples. This is what it unzips into. I'll click on samples, Java. We have all of our samples in all different languages on here. Now I'm going to go into the search sample. Now that I'm in the root of the directory, I'm going to go ahead and click open. And notice that there's a pom.xml. If you've used Maven before, you should be familiar with this file. It defines the dependencies, but if you don't know what this is, don't worry too much about it for now. I'm going to go ahead and click Finish. It's going to go ahead and start importing this project into my sample. Now, this went pretty quickly because I've already done this before, but on your first time doing this, it might take a little bit longer because what Maven does is it looks to see what the dependencies are, and it goes ahead and it downloads them to a local cache on a local machine, and if you already have those dependencies, it's basically just copying a file. If you don't have these, that's when it has to connect to the internet and download the dependencies. So when I open search.java, and I have a humongous font, I've got a bunch of imports here, and you see that I didn't have to do anything. And these, Maven just automatically included all of these dependencies, even though these are not in the zip file. So I can go ahead, and you can see that I don't have any errors. I can go and run this code by going to run. Enter a search term. And this is, I'm surprised that worked, but I think it's because I already edited this code earlier. I added, in resources, I added a YouTube, there's a YouTube.properties where you enter your API key, and that's why this code is able to work. So let me just open a quick file so you can see what this looks like. This is pom.xml. And let's open up the raw XML. And this is an XML file that defines all of the different dependencies that your project has, as well as where to go to download these. So you're saying, oh, you've got to go to the Maven repository, and you're going to go ahead and download. We need Google API services. We need the YouTube client. We need the Google HTTP client. And it kind of recursively goes in and downloads the dependencies of those projects. So it's a very, very helpful tool for running code. As you could see, I imported that code really quickly. Whereas if I weren't using Maven, I'd have to go through a bunch of steps of configuring jar dependencies and just copying files around until I get the right mix of things to make it work. So that's how you do this in Eclipse.
Actually, I have a question if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Like in doing that, do you actually specify a resource and Maven repository doing that, or is it getting like from a central Maven repository? There is kind of like a Maven Central where a lot of very common packages are. Now, there are ways to configure Maven to go to different repositories. I don't think we're doing that in pom.xml. For running the samples, it's not important because everything we've done should just work out of the box. Perfect.
Yeah. You do need an internet connection. So it becomes a little bit tricky if you work at a company where you have like a proxy, right? Because network proxies are kind of crazy. Like you've got all kinds of different levels of proxies, right? You've got a proxy settings in your browser, proxy settings at your system level, and a whole bunch of other places where we can modify proxy settings. And this causes lots of craziness to happen. So unfortunately, debugging network proxies is out of the scope of the show, trying to move relatively quickly. So let's go ahead and talk about IntelliJ.
Sure.
So IntelliJ is my favorite. It's probably my favorite IDE, and this is a product that I pay for, right? For just like doing random stuff. And even though I work on open, I could probably try to apply for an open source license, but because IntelliJ IDE Pro is something that costs for a personal developer, I think like $200. But JetBrains, the company behind IntelliJ, has made a community version that is extremely good, and it's free. So anyone could go ahead and download this, and I'll show you what I'm talking about, IntelliJ IDEA. And, well, they say it's the best. I mean, they're arguably biased, but it's a pretty good IDE. We click on download, you'll see that, oh, there's an Ultimate Edition, and this is the edition that you have to buy a license for. But there's a free Community Edition. Even though they say it's lightweight, it's very powerful. So let's go back to... this is still Eclipse. I get confused. Let's go back. I'm all confused now because I have different weird font sizes. So we're opening up IntelliJ. This is the main screen you see when you first open up IntelliJ. And how do we import the samples so that we can start writing code? Again, even though we're doing this with YouTube API samples, you can do this with most of the other samples that we have on developers.google.com, as long as you're using Maven, right? You can do this with BigQuery, Drive API, and so on and so forth. So I'm now going to go ahead and click Import Project. All right, I cheated. I already browsed this, but again, it's downloads, YouTube API samples, Java, and let's do something else. I'm going to go ahead and let's import my uploads.sample. Right, this little M here, this is the Maven symbol. Let's go ahead and click OK. And by default, it might say create project from existing sources. You want to make sure to select import project from external model. We're using Maven, so we select Maven. We click next. And now you've got a whole bunch of different settings, and you could tweak these as needed. I don't think I need to change these too much, so I'm just going to go ahead and click Next. Now it's going to ask you which Maven project you want to import. The Maven project we want to import, well, it's the name of the project we want to run. In this case, it's YouTube-command-line-myuploads-sample. So now I'm going to click Open. I'm going to click Next. And on your first time you're running IntelliJ, you're going to need to specify which JDK you're using. So what's kind of cool is that, this is just a default Mac one. If you don't know where the path is, just go on Google and look for how to configure default JDK for IntelliJ IDEA, or your favorite search engine, if it's not Google. Project name, I know this seems like a lot, but this is actually very, very easy. Most cases, you don't need to change anything here. Click Next, no frameworks, Finish. Now we're going to go ahead and start importing this. And what you'll see is when I start opening this up, I'm opening up the Java file. I'm surprised it worked right away. So it shouldn't have worked right away, because it should have been like, oh, you haven't defined Jackson or any of these client libraries. But because I'm using Maven and I've already run this before, it's gone and it's downloaded all the dependencies and all of the libraries I need to run the sample code. So let's see what we need to do here. When you're running the myUpload sample, you need to make change to client secret.json. And this shouldn't work because I recently reset this key. But I'm going to go ahead and run this now. myUploads. It's going to build everything. And there, it's taking me through the OAuth authorization flow. And it has bombed out because I'm using an invalid client ID. But don't worry too much about that right now. The point is that you don't have compilation errors and things are working right away. And Maven has a bunch of other features. So when you right-click on your project, you can scroll down to Maven, and you can see some of the different things you could do. Right? You can re-import things if somehow you've messed things up, if you've deleted the local jars. You can generate sources, and you can just do a lot of different things in Maven. So this is IntelliJ IDEA. There's just a lot of things I like about this product, which I like their approach to a lot of just a lot of things you want to do in an IDE. But then again, it's up to you which one you want to use. Both IntelliJ IDEA and Eclipse are very good options. I simply prefer to use IntelliJ for a bunch of personal reasons. So that's all I have for now. So if you have any questions about how to do any of this stuff, do find us on Stack Overflow using the YouTube-API tag. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to close down IntelliJ, and I'm going to hand this laptop over to Ibrahim because he's using Eclipse. I'm trying to convert him, and he's actually pretty open-minded. He said, yeah, I'll give it a try. Yeah. But for this show, he's going to be using Eclipse because he knows a little bit better. So let's go ahead and do that right now. I'm going to minimize my browser, and let's open up Eclipse. And I'm going to hand this over to you.
Cool, right. Thanks.
Did you have any questions about that? Hopefully that was very clear and I was able to explain.
I think that was really clear. Like so far I was using the command line of Maven, but using this way, I think make even my life much easier.
What I actually do is I do something different where when I'm developing, I use the Maven plugin so in my IDE it imports things correctly, but I still also use the command line heavily. I use the command line for doing things because I prefer to use the command line for source control and just doing these builds. But again, it's all personal preference. Some people like GUIs and IDEs. Mm-hmm. I like a mix of an IDE and command line based environment.
It's perfect.
So, all right, take it away, man.
Okay, great. So far, Ikai made my life so easier. Imported everything. Everything is super set up. All the dependencies are ready. So I think we are good to go. Now we can just start looking at our code a little bit, and since everything we've done, maybe we can just see and like go through our code and understand like how is the development in YouTube, how we can develop stuff. So actually I will start with search, and I will go to the other three examples of my uploads, a subscription and uploading video. And search is a little bit different by authorization because you'll use like just an API key. But for other stuff, we'll be like other examples, we'll be using the OAuth 2. So we will have like a client secret kind of authorization going through. And let's look at the code a little bit. So in this one, in the search, everything starts with authorization basically. We'll create our YouTube builder class, which is the class actually to create our YouTube model object. And it is like the main class we need to like deal with, and it will create the YouTube object that will be interacting all over the YouTube development phase. So we initialize the class, giving like the HTTP request. We set our application name as an identifier, and we built the class. So all builder is like created to our YouTube object. It's all ready. For this one, we won't need to have like already have the credentials early because we will be just using an API key.
Okay.
So as a YouTube model, we'll just go to via object YouTube search method will give us the search object, and once we wanna like, since we wanna do like a search, we'll do like a list out of the search. So we created like the YouTube search list object by using the YouTube search list, and anything we want to give as like the parameters, optional parameters. Actually, these are the resources we want to get back from our search results. So we want the ID and snippet to be returned back.
Now, is this list object compatible with Java util list? Or
No, it is not a Java util list. Maybe there could be like a small. People can get confused about it, but it's the YouTube search list object. So I ideally like actually rather than importing all the way to the Google YouTube search list, I would rather just go to the way it ends till to the before the YouTube. So you will be able to see in here in the screen we can see actually it's YouTube.search at
that's a
list
very
object.
That's a very good tip, especially
if you
when you're
don't
reading code.
do it, I think you may see the list in both ways and you may get confused really easily.
That's a really good tip. Thank you for that.
So since we didn't get authorized before, we'll use the API key. For this example, for the sake of this example, we just get the API key from a property object, and we set it to our search object. We create the search object by the list, and we want to actually have like a query term. We get it either from user. For this example, we just get it from the user, the query term. We want actually for this one, we just want the videos to be returned, not the playlist or channels. For this one, just the videos, and we set the type. We set the field is an optional parameter. If you want just like this few fields to be returned rather than everything in that resource, we want like that one. We set the maximum resource, and after we set all this object and we make it ready for execution, all we need to do is execute. In this line, we execute it, and since it's a search list execution, it will return us the list of search results. Not to confuse, this time we are using the Java list.
Now this time it's a Java list.
This time is a Java list. So like since we named the other one as youtube.search.list,
right.
So it is obvious that this time we are using the other list.
So just to clarify, a youtube.search.list, you're not actually creating an object that's a list, you're creating an API request object.
Yeah.
So because the API request, if you look at the URI when you go to the API Explorer, it is /list, right? It's very in this kind of RESTful style. So again, that is a request object, and this is an actual list of objects.
The one we created first was a request object, and this one is actually our response. So anytime the way we will be going on all these examples is we will be creating the request, modify it if necessary, and once we do the execution, after execution we will get like a response object, and this object here is like a type of list search results. So we will have like all the search results inside our list. And we can, like for this example, we can just go over the list and get all the things we want inside the object, which will be like search results. And I will move over and I will just go to other examples, actually like going through the OAuth 2, which is like the suggested way of using our APIs.
So one nice thing about this while he's setting up this project I'll talk about is that I really like the Python client. I think it reads really nicely. It's very concise. It works really well. But you do have some advantages when you're using the Java client, which is that you have
type safety, which allows the autocomplete to be somewhat useful. Now, this can also be frustrating in some instances when you make an API request and you must pass a specific instance of a certain type of object. But while you're learning the API, just having autocomplete to say YouTube.search. What are my methods? Is it the right number of parameters? It's very, very helpful. So there's kind of, win and lose.
Yeah, I think I first started on doing my own examples on the Python. It was fast and it was like learn. But on the other end, like when I'm like stuck in somewhere and I don't know like which is the right object type, that was the time that I was like, oh, maybe Java would be much easier that way.
Right. And definitely use the YouTube API Explorer that's on developers.google.com to kind of figure out what to pass in, because your alternative is you're writing code and testing, writing code and testing. The YouTube API Explorer, it'll deal with it'll manage the authentication for you, and you can try different things till you find a combination that works. So.
And in documents, it's like explicitly said like which one are the required parameters, which are the optionals. So definitely go there. Definitely go like whenever you are stuck in something that you are not sure like what kind of parameter you want to pass, or you are getting responses like bad request. Definitely go there and like check it out, which is the right one.
All right. So what are we looking at now?
It is like my upload. So we want to try to get like all the uploads we did to our own channel.
Okay.
So this one we will use like as I explained, the OAuth2 kind of authorization from a client secret.
Right.
For installed applications, we use like this philosophy using like the authorization code flow, which actually say when the user wants to use our application, he gives his own identity and just he logins it, he authorizes with his identity. And once it's passed, we will save the identity to the client secret JSON. Not the password, not the username, just the token.
Again, not the username and not the password. This is very important.
Yeah, this is like the approved way. We don't want to save like users' credentials in this one.
Yeah.
So we try to check it, and if for this example, if the client secrets file is not existed, we try to get it from the user. And once we get it, we want to...
Let's just browse to it real quick. It is, if you need to edit this, it's in source main resources. It's client_secrets.json.
Yeah.
I was considering refactoring this to use a properties file, just because it's kind of silly in this instance.
So
how we're loading Jackson just so we can load this like one tiny JSON. But,
that would be much easier.
Not a huge deal though, I don't think, especially since we're using Maven,
Yeah, so. Maven will be doing all the things. So from our JSON, once we saved it over there, we were able to just like read it from as a credential store. And what we will do is like we will pass this credential store. We will set the credential to or Google authorization code flow, which will do the flow for ourselves. And we will have the local receiver for it. And here at this very line, since we are using is an installed app, and we set in the API console, we set it as an installed app. Using that credentials, we were able to use this flow, use the local receiver we just created in this line, and authorize the user. At this very line, once the user is like succeeds, put his like authorization, gives that authorization with the right scopes. Like it's really important to use with the right scopes. Not you may have like problems if you don't use the right scopes, which we will be also find in the documentation. Which scopes are needed for what kind of requests. Here we have like for this one we have the Google APIs dash out/YouTube scope, which is the both read and write scope. It is like the full authorization. There are actually 3 scopes I will go over today. The YouTube.read-only, which will only give read-only access, and YouTube.upload, which will able to upload videos. So using the previous method we authorized, now we are ready to go and do the similar way as we did before. We created our YouTube builder object. And look at, there's like a small difference here. We actually pass our credential since we authorize with that credential. And we don't need to set API keys anymore since we already authorized. This one, as like we did before, we will create like a channel request object, channel list request object. We want to return the content details, and we want only my videos, my channel's content basically, and we'll set mine to the true. And since if you
and set mine true just means return my uploads.
yeah, just my uploads. Basically, for this one, my channel and my uploads.
Right. And in when you look inside the API Explorer, what this maps to is there's a field that says mine true or false.
Yeah. And as we did before, we will create like the or channel request object, and we execute it. And this one again, we will return a list of Java util list kind of channels. If you have been going to the channel resource in the documents, you'll be able to see actually the resources like the content details, snippet, ID, and inside content details, there is a field called related playlists. So we want to actually get from that channel's response, which since so far we'll be able to get all my channel back. So I will go through and get my uploads inside the channel, which is a playlist called uploads.
Right. So this is something that's a little bit confusing to people, which is how do I fetch my uploads? They're now a playlist, and they're now specifically a related playlist and an upload. So this is to be aware. People are always asking us, how do I get my uploads, right?
Yeah.
You make a get playlist call essentially.
Yeah, some people confused and they want to go to the videos and try to search from there, but
yeah,
the right way is going to the channels and get it from there. So inside the get playlist, there is a upload field as well, and with this one, we were able to get my uploads, which is a playlist. So now, since we have like a list of playlist items, which playlist actually has like items of playlist item, and every item is like essentially like it's a video or another item in it, and it is where actually you will be able to get like all the uploads video, since we said only set mine before. In this one, we'll go through the since now we have like the playlist item list, not the playlist itself. We only get the playlist up to now. Now we want to go into the playlist and fetch all the videos inside it. So it's like a two-step process. So far we were able to get the playlist inside, and we will get the first playlist out of there, which was our upload playlist. And putting the playlist item, playlist items.list is another request object we will be using.
So essentially
here.
what you're saying is we're making two requests to get all of our uploads.
First request was to get the channel, get the channel request, and we get like our channel the uploads, the upload playlist ID. And once we get that playlist, now we will go to that playlist and request the items inside that playlist.
Okay.
With this one, we set the fields. And now we set set page tokens, because it will be like some pages over there. If we already have like a token before, maybe it will be empty, or maybe we went to the first page and we want to get like the second page in the example. So I will go through all the pages by going with like page tokens one by one. We'll do like the loop for that, and every time we put a new page token, we will execute our request again with the new page token. And we will, for the sake of this example, we will add them to a normal Java list. We will keep populating all the results we will gain through the different pages. And once we have all requests, we can just like print it out, or we can use which one we are interested in. That's all over for my uploads part. I'll do like an upload video, which I was like getting questions about it before. How we upload video, especially I was like, maybe it's a good time to like talk about it a little bit. I was doing like some Android. I was working on an Android app, and some people were asking like, "Oh, you want to you make like an Android app and upload some video?
Right.
How we can get samples? They couldn't find inside the Android samples,
Right.
that kind of stuff." Actually, if you just put this one into your Android sample, it will just work, because they are both using the Java as well.
Yeah, and in Android you can always also use the upload intent.
Yeah, you can.
Which
you can
is
just
really nice.
put to the
But there's some people that do want to do this.
they want to do
whatever reason.
customize, and they want to create their own uploads. But definitely,
Right.
if you are like you want to use it, test it right away, and you want to do it fast, you can just create create the intent.
I will say that if you try rebuilding the intent, I mean, a lot of engineering work went into that, like doing the background uploads, and there's a lot that can happen. You know, like when you're uploading in using the intent, it queues up a bunch of videos and it shows you upload progress in the bar. Like there's a lot you have to build. Like it's not a trivial amount of work. So first examine if you can already use intents. I mean, intents are one of the best features of Android, and if you're not making good use of that, well, what are you doing? You know, like focus on building your app and not reinventing every single thing that's already been provided.
Don't try to reinvent the wheel. First try it.
Yeah.
Definitely. So in this one, we want to upload a video slash star type of video. So actually, this is the file format we will be putting while we will be uploading the video. We want it categorized as a video. As we did before, we will do the same authorization levels. This one, the only difference will be we will be using a different scope called YouTube.upload, and we create our file. Is different from the other object. We have to like get a file from our user or wherever you want to specify the path. And once we create the file, in the video upload request, we will be using both the file and the metadata in the same time. So we will be able to set the properties and the metadata while uploading the video itself too. We created like a new video, which is our video object we will be sending over to the wire. And we want it to be like public. We set this private status. It's a video status object. So as we explained before, everything here will be like an object. Every field we want to create. Maybe if you guys using it as a dictionary in Python, here we will be using as a object for all of these fields. It's a video status object if you want to set the status, and we set status as public. We set it to the metadata we want to really push it, which is the video. It's the video object. We want to like set a snippet as well. We create like just from a calendar, we just get today's date or any date we want. We set this snippet as its like title, description, and we want. There was like questions about how we put the text inside, and you will put the text inside the snippet as a list, as a Java list, not an or special list.
Yes.
Java util list, an array list we did for this example, and we set the snippet with all the text, the title, the description, and we want to like push it to the YouTube.
Right.
And how.
So I noticed that this is just taking a standard input stream. So what we're doing in this sample is we're specifically loading from a file. But if you somehow have a different input stream, like say you're loading from a database and you have that as an input stream, or an alternate data source, anything that's compatible with the input stream interface should be able to just drop in, replace the code.
Yeah, definitely. As long as there's an input stream interface that implemented, you can just use it right away. You can plug it in. So we will create for this one, we want to create an insert request, which is YouTube videos insert. And which will have, we want to return for this example, snippet statics and status fields on the way back. And what we want to put is, we want to put the input stream as well as the metadata as I explained. So metadata is here, input stream we already got from the user, we created a file and put as an input stream. And we have like a Google Zone Media HTTP uploader you can use right away. It's from the video insert. You can get the HTTP uploader from there if you want to use that one. And so this is the tricky part. If you want to use the resumable uploads, which is pretty new, or if you want to use like the simple normal the previous upload, which tries to do the upload as a one huge chunk.
Right.
If you want to use the resumable one, it has some nice features that you can also track the progress of your upload, which you can create, like in this example, create a progress listener, which will be like at every stage of the progress you will be getting notifications, and you can even set like display bars, or you can, in your example, show like by getting this progress listeners has like you can track what percentage of uploads you send so far,
cool.
how many bytes you send so far, and you can definitely tell user how is the upload is going on.
On that note, this is not asynchronous. If you're writing for Android, absolutely do this in a background thread. Do not block the UI thread. Sometimes I still open Android apps and I go, who's doing this? Don't block the UI thread. Yeah, and it's true of any. Don't ever block the UI thread in any mobile application you're ever writing, be it Android or iOS.
Yeah. So like here we already put we implemented the progress listener, and now we set our progress listener to our uploader, and now we are all good to go. We will just we already create our insert object before, request object before. We will just execute it, and the way it will return the new video metadata, the one returned from the service, the one as a response object. From that we can get like anything we ask for, like ID, snippet, the status and statistics about.
And this is the ID we would do if we wanted to, again, edit the video data after a fact, or add it to a playlist, or things of that sort. So yeah, so hopefully that's it. Did you want to share any more samples? Because I just wanted to say that we are a little bit out of time.
I think that was like the main ones and it will get you definitely started. If you want like more later on, we can go through, or you can definitely write in Stack Overflow. You can just go to, actually you already gave the link. You should definitely go to YouTube API samples page and check it out from there.
Yeah, and if you have any ideas for future shows that you want to see, let us know on any one of these forums. Google Plus is a very good place to tell us, hey, I'm looking to do this. And if it's something that we think is going to help a lot of people, then we'll say, hey, you know what, that sounds like a great idea for a show. So we'll go ahead and then we'll get cranking on that for you. So thank you very much for that introduction and that very kind of quick code walkthrough. I'm hoping that was helpful to you guys. I'm hoping that if you're a Java developer, this is going to make things a little bit less intimidating. So yeah, thank you guys very much for joining us on the show, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
All right.
And one last note, we are hiring.
Oh yeah, that's right. I always forget this, and they always get mad at me because I don't say it. We are hiring. It's not just YouTube developer relations that's hiring. We are hiring pretty much across every single function developer relations. We're hiring in our multiple offices. We have the most positions in Mountain View, but we also have positions in New York City, I think Tokyo, London.
All across the world.
Yeah, just in all of our different offices. So Seattle. I think those are the main ones. Anyway, thank you guys very much. If you have any questions, find us on Google Plus or on our Plus page. Or we sometimes look at the comments on the YouTube videos, but we don't check them as much as we check Plus. So thank you guys very much, and tell all your friends about us.
Definitely. Thanks.
Take it easy.
Have a good one.